Hello. I was just reading my diary. It's always good to have something racy to read, as I believe the Oscar Wilde once said. How could one forget Oscar Wilde? Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Slate Live. I am June Thomas, Senior Managing Producer of Slate Podcasts and one of the hosts of Working, until very recently, also one of the hosts of The Waves, though that is now on hiatus. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I'll be talking about crafting and what crafting can do for you, how you can craft with just some really basic things that you surely already have around your house, and why crafting can be a nice thing to do, especially right now when we're all stuck indoors. And I'm not saying that we're looking for things to do, because I realize that, especially those of you with children, are pretty busy and are really not dying to kill spare minutes. But if you were, and if you do have a few spare minutes, these are some cool things that you could be doing with your time. We will be taking questions that I will answer at the end of this session. I just want to assure you that no washing up bottles or sticky black plastic will be required to make any of these crafts. Also, I want to tell you that although I spend all my spare time making these things, I did not invent them. In fact, I get most of my ideas from YouTube. I sit on my couch watching YouTube videos, and then I go off and recreate the things that I made. So these are not my inventions. Afterward, when we're done, I'll put in the chat some links to the people who actually invented or came up with these things that I then just repeat. But let's get down to it. Let's get to some crafts. I'm not really set up to actually craft with you today. This isn't a CWM. That's Craft With Me video for those not familiar with the YouTube parlance. But I'm going to show you some things and show you what they're made out of so that you can later explore for yourself. So first of all, I'm going to show you something that I made with junk mail. So, sorry, just figuring out where we are in the great screen of things. So, this is a catalog that came from the post office. These are the post office the way that the post office tells you about their new stamps. And I'm going to drive everyone crazy with this. And this one I turned into a notebook. This is, for those of you who are familiar with the size TN Traveler's Notebook, this is a standard size. I have lots of paper because I love stationery. And so, that's great. I've got hundreds of notebooks. I really don't need any more notebooks, but I need something to do with myself right now. And also, these are all different kinds of paper. Sometimes you want to write on one kind of paper. Sometimes you want to write on another kind of paper. And sometimes you just want to play with your paper and put it all in different configurations. So for this one, I put a little pocket, which I sewed because I now have a sewing machine. So I just put kind of a little edging around it. I pasted this on here as a place to put things, but also to give the paper, it's kind of cover stock, but it's not all that strong, just to give it a little bit more kind of sturdiness. I also put another piece of kind of cardboard that I what's that word? Collaged on. But I accidentally put it on upside down. But you know what? This is the only notebook that has this upside down collage on it. It's mine. It's the only one like it. And then I want to show you also this little pocket that I made out of a piece of a book. Yes, I do tear up books. I know this is a controversial stand, but this was a book that I found on the street, because in Brooklyn, that's what we do. And I used the cover for something, which we'll get to later. But then I take the pages and fold them up and sew them. And this is actually, you can put things as a little pocket in the back, and then there's a little, what we call a tuck spot here. This is actually from John Stuart Mill's Utilitarianism. So you can also read it and get inspired. I put a closure on this notebook with some Velcro, hook and loop tape, which you don't have to do. But yeah, really, you could make this, or in any other size, with a piece of junk mail. So that is junk mail. Making journals for yourself with stuff that you already have. Again, it can seem a bit silly. There's no shortage of books in this world. But I find that if you make a book, especially if you make it with stuff that you just had lying around, it takes away a lot of the intimidation that you can get from books that you buy. Like if you buy a book and it's so amazing and you think, oh my God, I'll never have another book like this. It's just so nice. But if you just make it yourself, and you could always make yourself another one, it's really, you don't have that problem. So this is a book that I made when I was going on a trip. So the cover is actually a map, but it's a map. Yes, it's from Catskill Trails, and it's made of like Tyvek, so it's thin and light, but it's also very resilient. Then I put different kinds of paper. See, this is actually a notebook that I completed. Different kinds of paper, some maps, some so other things. And I put in little things that I bought as I was on my travels. I also put photos that I took. Those are from my home village of Maudesley Common. Some notes, of course, and decorations that I did. That was a place that I visited, or actually the hotel where we stayed in. So I had I just wasn't terribly worried about this book and messing it up, because I knew I could always make another. So that's something that I really recommend. If you are one of those people, as I think there are many, who it's not that you think you're going to write the great American novel, but when you go on a trip, you just want to make some notes about where you went, take some photos, put some notes about those photos, just make a little book like this. I sewed it with some waxed cotton or waxed linen, but you can sew it with anything. That's actually the signature in the middle. As you can see, I'm not very good with knots, so it's a bit messy. There's the binding. It's just super easy, super simple. And no one else has this book. Probably no one else would want it either, but there you go. Now, that one I just made from pieces of paper, but you can take old books and turn them into different kinds of books. So, for example, there's this old string of books called Audels. They were for professions, for things like refrigeration and air conditioning, machinist and tool makers, auto mechanics. They're guide books, really, for all the things that you need to know for this particular profession. And so there's a whole series of these books. You take the covers off. They are so cool. They often have really fabulous impressions, embossing, or just kind of things that have been put into the cover. They also have these really nice end papers often, but the inside at this point, even if you were a carpenter and builder, this information is out of date. So there's no actual purpose to these books anymore, except to repurpose, I'm running out of room, into books that you make yourself. So this was a radio man's guide. Now, as a podcaster, perhaps I should feel some connection to this. This has got a slightly different cover, although it's also by Audels. It's hard for me to get the A into the light so that you can see that. I did some sewing on the inside because I took out the pages that were in there and I put my own pages. And that's another pocket that I made from paper from a book. I believe that's from the Federalist Papers. And then that's from a bird book. And then just like either bits of note paper, or that's more Federalist papers, different kinds of note paper. This is a beef chart. That's from an old recipe book. Some coffee dyed paper. This is an envelope, which you can use to kind of put things in. This is just the opened envelope. This was that's my address. Oops. Oops. That was a wedding invitation or a wedding thank you. Again, just kind of, that I think is a French textbook, or French, how to learn to parle français. So anyway, you can see I just put 3 signatures, as they are called, into this one. And if I can find where I sewed, because as I have said, I'm not a good sewer. Yeah, so they're just like that. And then you put them through the spine of the book. You can see the 3 signatures there. If only I could figure. So yeah, but how cool! This is the only one like this. Again, maybe not a bad thing, but super cool. And I've made a bunch of those. So that's one way that you can just take a book. Everybody has books that are either not really something that you want anymore, not something that anyone else would want to read, especially old textbooks, information that is now out of date. You don't have to feel bad about repurposing them, because even if you gave them to a thrift store or to a used bookstore, first of all, used bookstores are not going to want to take that kind of material. And if it does end up with them, they're probably just going to send it off to be pulped. So don't feel bad. And you're making something that both entertains you and distracts you from everything that's going on, and also makes something super cool. Now, another thing that I often make stuff out of, and that is just sitting around, is envelopes. Now, these weird little books that honestly I don't know why I make them. I got this idea from a YouTuber who I watch called Jessica Rapp, and it's just such a strange thing. I can't possibly explain them because I don't really know why I made them, but except that it's fun. And they have like lots of places to tuck things and pockets and spots where you can just. And then there's also I didn't put one in this one, but there's also room for a notebook. I covered it with paper that I guess decorated on my jelly press. That's another thing, very cool craft, jelly plates. So again, just like little pockets, little things that I made inside them. Often using the paper from the books that I've ripped up. Well, so these are made out of, when it comes down to it, envelopes. So that big spread there was a big envelope like this, with 2 smaller envelopes like that attached to either side, and then another envelope in the middle for whatever reason. I can't really explain the purpose of these things. Here's one that I made earlier in great blue Peter form. So this is like the basic thing. So you can already see that you've got all these places where you can put things, you can add more, and then you can add more smaller envelopes that of course I do just have lying around. You may not, but do you? Do you have any coin envelopes or little envelopes that you put tips in for, like your hairdresser? Do you have things like this, which I believe are intended for seed envelopes? Are you such a nerd that, like me, you have library pockets in your possession? I'm going to show you another one. This is the weirdest one. This one, I was never a brownie or a Girl Scout, but this one is decorated with pages from this old brownies book that I found on the street. Brooklyn streets really do provide endless material. Sorry, I'm opening this in a very strange way. Oops, got caught on something. So this one does have a notebook in it. You can see you can also add another notebook, which is another one that I made. It's also something I did on my press. So yeah, all these little brownie things that, I don't know, really can't explain the why of it, but it's just kind of fun to make it and decorate it and just go absolutely bonkers with it. Now, the one thing about this, I will warn you that if you do end up making something like this, you will bore your friends rigid by trying to show them all the cool spots and tucks and areas that you've made. But this is just a bunch of envelopes and also a library pocket. This is a library pocket that I decorated. Library pocket, maybe nowadays in the days of electronic checkout in libraries, we don't see them so much, but like in old school libraries, they would have a book, a little slot here. This would be like where you wrote who was taking the book out or when it was due back. And these pockets were intended for that. Now they are for decoration, I guess. Now, another way that you can decorate things like this is just like there's stuff all around your house. I, as I've mentioned multiple times, love stationery. So I did one that was just, again, this, I also put in this elastic because I'm the kind of person who has elastic, but you don't have to, but it's nice to, and you also don't even really need to close these, but I always think it just gives you that sense of, I don't know, closure. So this is just decorated with a bunch of stationery, like different pieces of paper, different types of paper that I collaged on. And then inside, it's a tribute to notebooks and stationery, just because really I'm just a weirdo. But I'm sorry, I'm not holding it up because I was distracted by admiring it and how wonderful it is. But it's just all just like my tribute to stationery, and all this stuff is just paper that I had around. You probably have something that might, in your case, it might not be stationery, but just some kind of hobby thing that you just have a bunch of stuff that's about your hobby that you could decorate something with. Another thing that you can make stuff out of, and I have way too much stuff here, is file folders. Now, I admit, I bought, in the sense of direction, I bought this particular kind of file folder, especially because I love this color, because craft is such a cool, I don't know, color and just texture. Everything about it is super cool to me. It's retro, also totally functional. You can also use it as a file folder. But I have been repurposing file folders in all kinds of ways. This is, you'll never guess, it's a notebook, but it has cool little pockets on it. Actually, that's not really a pocket. That's just a piece of decoration that I collaged. But then there's a pocket on the back that's actually just a piece of wax paper from the kind of thing you might wrap your sandwich. Remember, you used to take sandwiches to work? Well, and then I just put something in there. And then this is just a place for a notebook. I have this one just on I have it on a elastic band. So it's, you can change it out. This is another one that I made just with more writing paper. And then you've got little spaces, or I guess like pockets, pockets on the outside. No, this is obviously very homemade. I'm not good at stitching, as you can tell, but honestly, to me, that makes it even super cooler. And this also was from something that I saw on Jessica Rapp's YouTube channel. And you could use this as a wallet. So if you were the kind of person who likes to have a notebook in your pocket, and you don't want to have too many things in your pocket, you could put credit cards, money in these pockets. There's 2 pockets, one on each side. And I'm just this is just for demonstration purposes. And that's just made from one of these. You just kind of fold it that way so that you have that crease. And then it won't even try and explain how to make it right here and now, but that's all it's made out of. I have other ones in different sizes. That's also a pocket made from the Federalist Papers. There's a library pocket with nothing in it, and I just put some marbled paper on the cover. Made another notebook there. And then you got these things, pockets, I guess. Everything's a pocket. Have you ever noticed that? You can put these pockets in your pocket. More things from file folders. Okay, this one. Now, Loan Liu, our deputy editor, I took this file folder from his desk. And now this is something that I saw, again, on a YouTube channel. This from Nick the Booksmith. And this is for making, this is for holding like ephemera, which maybe only exists in the minds of stationery nerds. Sorry. But you kind of open it up, and again, more pockets. So you can just kind of store stuff in this. And I just made it from a file folder. Don't know why really, again, but it's just something to do, right? And then finally, I think, this is a really big thing that I made. And I suspect I might not be able to get in because the paper, too much twisting and papering. Okay, but I'll just show this one thing and then I will answer a question. So this one is, I guess, another notebook. Surprise, surprise. Oh, I got it upside down. Another notebook. And then it also has some, this is all just envelopes that have been turned into other envelopes as places to store things. Weird, huh? Now, we have a question. The first question is, what are a few things a very new crafter has to have to get started? Well, you do need some kind of paper. Well, for paper crafts anyway. I'm mostly a paper crafter. There are many kinds of crafts, obviously. I think, so you need paper, like regular paper or writing weight paper. You also need something a little sturdier. So you can use these file folders. You can also buy cardstock, it's usually called, that people use to make cards. So you need that. You need some glue. Glue is very important, and you need a couple of different kinds of glue. I would recommend, like, glue sticks are awesome, especially if permanent glue. That's but like Yoo-hoo glue is great. Glue sticks. There are lots of varieties, lots of types, but as long as it's permanent, don't get a replaceable glue stick because that will just fall apart. And then a white glue. So either use PVA glue, or you can just use, like, there are lots of brands like Art Glitter Glue is a glue that I like. And I'm kind of doing a weird little thing here. Well, okay, I can't reach it, but if you can get one that has a tip that you can really kind of focus where the glue is going, that's really great, because you don't want glue everywhere. The more precise you can be with the application of glue, the better. I would say, like, one thing that's nice to have are punches so that you can make like circles. Like, so this closure is just punched circles punched out of sort of cardstock or file folder that I then covered in paper. But those kind of punches, it's actually really hard to cut a circle without help. So a punch for circles, just little envelopes, things like that. You can really get a lot of fun out of that. I recently got a sewing machine, which was something I never thought I would get. I had never sewn in my life, and I still can only do the most basic stitching and not very straight. But that causes a very cool effect on paper, as you can see here in this. Can June show some cool bits from what I imagine must be a huge stationery collection? I do have a lot, but it would require me to stand up and go and get them, and because I don't have them right here. But that can be another day's show and tell, perhaps. Ooh, go-to listening music when you craft. Well, actually, of course, I listen to podcasts, especially Slate podcasts. They're all great. I particularly recommend Working, because what better to stimulate you to be very consciously not working than people talking about their work. And now on Working, we are focusing on people with creative jobs or in working creatively. So that is extra inspiring. But really, I do love a podcast. And so that's really my go-to accompaniment. Let me see. What is June watching in quarantine? And what does June think about Tiger King? I have to admit, I did not fancy Tiger King. Nothing about it attracted me. And so since so many other people were talking about it, I decided not to. So I have no thoughts about Tiger King, except that I chose to say no. What am I watching? I just watched season 21 of SVU, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, which I've been a lifelong Law and Order watcher, but I did not watch this season's SVU because last season was so terrible. But Warren Leight, who's a previous showrunner, came back for this season, and I have to tell you, it's back in form. So I loved that. I also watched, I watched something that's not available yet, but it's coming soon. I watched all 10 episodes of Snowpiercer, the TV version of the movie, and it has a reputation as a doomed production because it's like, it was supposed to be on 2 different networks. It's been moved. It's been all kinds of troubles, but it was really good. I enjoyed it. I watched it when I did, because I'm going to be interviewing Alison Wright, who played Martha on The Americans. I can't believe I couldn't remember the name of The Americans. And she is fantastic in it. She plays a role. The roles are not exactly the same from the TV show to the movie, but her role is quite similar in many ways to the role that Tilda Swinton played in the movie, but without the offensive parts of that role. I was appalled by that performance. But Alison Wright's version is fantastic. So Snowpiercer coming, I believe, May 17th. And Feel Good. I watched Feel Good that we talked about on the last episodes of The Waves. That's on Netflix. And that's about it. I mostly watch YouTube videos these days. Big fan from Double X Days. Thank you. Need more June vid podcasts. Absolutely. Thank you, June. Have you ever crafted with cigar boxes? Thank you for the question. I have stored my stuff in cigar boxes. In fact, I could have gone on and on and on about all the things that I've made and shown you even more, because I have some things I looked over, because I have a cigar box just on the other side of the room that has some stuff in it. But I'm really like a paper purist, and I know that like the wood that cigar boxes are made of is more like paper than wood. But I've only used cigar boxes to keep my paper crafts in, but I do love them. And even though I hate tobacco and smoking and all of that, I have to admit they do kind of smell good too. I believe we are approaching the end of this half hour. I can't believe how long I can talk for. I imagine many of you are not surprised and possibly appalled. I thank you so much for coming into my home. That was very kind of you to visit. If you have any more crafting questions, I'm always very happy to answer them. And of course, to show you all of the things that I've made, I will go into excruciating detail, more excruciating detail than anybody could ever want to hear. I'm just looking around to see if there's one last thing that I just wanted to remind you. I haven't really made anything with it myself, but like among the things that you might have around you, like, do you have one of these calendars that you kind of rip the pages from? These beautiful photos, you could use them. I'm just saying, if you want to kind of turn the Michigan motto towards craft purposes, do you desire beautiful crafting supplies? Look around you. That is my final word. Thank you so much for joining us today for Slate's Q-Tips quarantine specials. Very grateful, and thank you for listening to Slate Podcasts. Check out this week's Working, a fantastic interview, no thanks to me, but because of the subject, Jamie Barton, one of the world's great mezzo-sopranos who shared all kinds of secrets about being an opera singer. Even if you don't like opera, please check it out, because she's just really nice and interesting, and it's crazy to think of what a weird world that is. Thank you very much, and hopefully I will join you again sometime. Next week, I wish I could remember who's going to be here next week, but it's going to be magnificent. So, I know, it's going to be Dahlia Lithwick. Who's greater than Dahlia Lithwick? No one. Also the host of the great podcast Amicus. So come back next week to talk with Dahlia. Thank you. And now I'll just